Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany, and this is the Berg, a tech and leadership podcast series by the Seidenberg School of Computer Science and Information Systems. Our guest for today is Olga Bogomolova, a former student of ours who has contributed so much to our community, both through her role in the creation of our Design Factory program and in her involvement on Seidenberg's advisory board. After obtaining her bachelor's in finance and economics, in addition to her master's in computer science, Olga has worked a number of jobs before landing her current position as a director of product management at LTK, an influencer marketing platform. On top of that, Olga is also the co-founder at Touch, a startup company aimed at guiding its users towards financial independence. Today, we will be focusing on Olga's experience in product management alongside her journey in discovering this passion of hers. So without further ado, Olga, I'd like to welcome you to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for being here. So I really want to tackle this first and foremost, um, Design Factory, because I think that a lot of our viewers don't really know what Design Factory is. You know, some of them are students kind of like interested in PACE. So could you just talk about what it is and how Design Factory came about?
Yeah, absolutely. So Design Factory is kind of like a program, but it's also an international community. It's not just a community within PACE or within Seidenberg. And the program is really aimed to give students on undergraduate, graduate, and in some case PhD level, an opportunity to work like in a real world setting to solve real world problems. And then one of the core beliefs of the Design Factory is that we learn by doing, right, and we learn best by solving problems. And so instead of like just reading and like maybe doing lectures or doing exams, like one of the core ways to learn is actually apply, right, all of those things to a project. And so that's really what Design Factor is about. It's like connecting students, connecting companies, and then connecting like academia, that like collective knowledge, right, like of that university possesses, and making this like magic happen by solving real world problems. And so that manifests itself really in a couple of courses. So there's the product development course. That's like a year-long program. It's in partnership with, I mean, at that time it was 20 plus institutions around the world. It might be more now because I haven't been
Yeah.
like keeping up with the numbers, but it's basically universities from Australia, from Finland, from Portugal, from China, so anywhere and everywhere in the world. And we put students from, those universities together in a team, that team that has like engineers and designers and like a business person, a marketing person, really the way that like ideal to work in the industry, in the work setting. We give them a problem, and the problem comes from a company. And so that the company had an idea of like, okay, well, we know that there's a problem here, and the problem is probably if somebody solves the problem, they're going to make money. So like, let's try to solve that problem. So they give that problem to students, and they spend a year understanding the problem. So building empathy for the people who are experiencing it. They try to figure out different solutions. They prototype the solutions. They see what works, what doesn't work. And the course concludes in sort of a showcase of a prototype that the students come up with. And so I actually was a student of this program myself, and we ended up building, like, I was a business major, and we ended up building this tool for a gaming company, and I've never built anything in my life. And I was like so proud that like I worked with 12 people, and we had no idea what we were going to do. We prototyped chairs that were more comfortable for gaming. We prototyped like communities. We did like all sorts of different tests, and we ended up coming up with this like physical hardware that was like a gaming device. um, and that was great. And then a couple of years later, I've seen a similar product launched by a different company out in the wild, and I was like, whoa, we had that idea first, like we prototyped it. And so it's honestly like just amazing, to be able to work across different disciplines, to be able to work on a problem, to be able to try different solutions, and then maybe even see it out there in the wild. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of the program. But there's other things there too. So lots of workshops, lots of design thinking, like exercises and activities, to learn, how do you build things with like the user in mind first, or the person who's experiencing the problem, like human-centered problem solving. But the gist is like that, like real world brought to you earlier.
Mhm. I think I definitely noticed that. I know I went to, they have like the presentations. Is it like they have like a mid presentation and then there's like one at the, I forget which one I went to, but I just remember like going and just seeing how everyone like from like varying disciplines were able to just like come together and create something like really cool. And I haven't yet been able to be a part of that, but I hope to, hopefully in like grad school. But I really appreciate the fact that that program exists, because it really does, you know, teach students, like you said, to like navigate the workforce essentially. But anyways, I really do want to talk about the work that you do at LTK. Could you just kind of like describe your role for LTK, and also what LTK is? How does LTK help creators essentially?
Sure. So I'll start with like what is LGK, and really what is a creator. So maybe some of you have heard of this like creator economy, right? And that's sort of next iteration of how we work today. So historically, there's like small business owners in the US economy. And then there's also people who work for larger corporations, and maybe a small subset of like freelancers, so to speak, right? But where the way that our economy is evolving, that we have a lot more people that work for themselves. And so that could look like an Uber driver, or maybe like a Grubhub delivery person, or it could be like a freelance designer, or it could be a person with fantastic taste, and really good ability to pick up products and talk about them. And so, that's also like a kind of gig economy person or creator. So they're kind of also known as influencers. So people who are using social media to, tell you how to sort of have a certain lifestyle, right? And that's kind of that's one of our target audiences, right? One of our customers are those creators. So people think, oh, it's a great job. Like you just take some pictures and you post them and you make money. But really, like they have teams, some of them have teams of people working for them. They have to like record every single aspect of their lives, right? So it's like very private things that, they share. And the more they share, the more authentic they look, or the more things they are, and the more like reciprocation they have from the followers. And so it's really intense work, right? Where they constantly have to like create and curate content. But what they do for our customers, or our other customers, the shoppers, is that they basically cut out like a lot of work that you have to do as a shopper. So, imagine you're like a busy young professional and you want to look good, right? Like it's important for you to like look good in your dating life, in your like going out with your friends, or maybe in your work life, or maybe to have like a good looking apartment. Like that's something that's very valuable to you. But it takes time to find things that you like, that you can afford, that will look good together. And maybe you don't want to spend that time. Maybe you want to spend the time in the gym, or maybe with your family, or even working because you're so busy. So what you could do is you can actually just use the creators from LTK, and they'll be like, this is the look, this is where you buy it, this is where you buy it for cheap. If you can't spend like hundreds of dollars on this stuff, there's an alternative that's for $20. And they do all that work for you, and they also will tell you like, this washes terribly, and one wash and it'll be ruined, so don't buy it. Or like, I have this thing and I've had it for 5 seasons and I keep loving it, and so like it's great, great buy. So they'll do a lot of the prep work for you. So all you have to do is just like select sort of the experience that you like, or the people that you like, and then they'll kind of personal shopper style, they'll like curate things for you. And so we're kind of serving both of those groups. And what we're really enabling is like these creators to find those shoppers, and the shoppers to find the creators, and the back end, allowing the creators to actually make money, right? Because like they're doing all of this really hard work that can take like whole days, or maybe they have teams of people that are helping them like validate, curate all this stuff. So how do they actually make money, and be able to sustain this, their lifestyle, or sometimes sustain their families, or like the breadwinners for their families? So we basically provide the technology that tracks, who bought what from whom. The stores that sell stuff, they pay commissions to the creators, and we take a small like transaction fee from those creators, but most money goes to the creators. And so we have like, I believe last numbers I heard was like 150 creators who are millionaires, who are like LTK millionaires. They made, and most of them right now are women, so like we
Mhm.
are creating a platform for women to monetize like their craft, like they're talented, stylish individuals. And prior to that, like it was really hard for them to monetize it. They were working in miserable jobs that they hated, and now they can just do this for a living and not like be poor, but actually support the family and have a really great lifestyle. So that's what we do. And that's okay. Maybe like a really long answer.
No, it's fine. It's
Uh,
fine.
what I do is so I like my primary focus are our shoppers, and more specifically on the conversion part of them. So like helping, actually the vision for our team is to make LTK the top of mind or the go-to platform for people to shop products that they love. And so it's really important to us that our shoppers are able to like do this in easier way, right? Because our whole value proposition is like we cut time and effort and give you like access to the things that you want. And also it's important for us to buy things they love, like not just buy stuff and like have it sitting in their lobby or in their like on the counter and they never use them and they don't want to return it, but like be like, oh my god, we had this like and we bought this thing and I loved it and it fit the same way it was supposed to fit, and I love using it, and like next time I want to buy something I'm going to go buy it from LTK because every time I find things that I love. So that's what my team is responsible for. I'm growing my team now, so it's interesting, but we basically have a couple of product managers under me, and then we work very closely with front-end engineers and back-end engineers and UX designers and like marketing technology engineers. So we kind of have this like mini squads, very similar to what we had at Design Factory
Yeah.
teams. And we work closely together on figuring out, like what some of the pain points that our customers or our shoppers have, or maybe like where the trends are going, and how do we build experiences that align with our vision of like making LTK the go-to platform to shop products that you love. And my job is like hiring a team and then basically like setting that vision and helping them execute on that vision. Um, Today I work very closely with back end and front end. I had like 3 meetings with back end engineers and front engineers. I QA, do quality assurance on our work. I work with an analytics team to analyze like the performance of what we did to make sure that like what we're working on is actually like moving the company in the direction that we wanted to move. So it's like a glue that sort of brings everything together. Like it's like marketing, it's front-end engineers, iOS and Android, it's back-end engineers that are building our microservices. It's engineers that are integrating with our like partners like Target and Walmart. It's UX designers who are designing, like doing research and designing our user interfaces. So that's what I do. I basically bring these groups together and help them figure out how to execute on our vision.
Mhm. I just really love the idea of LTK in general because like you said, it's in a sense kind of like facilitating or like at creating this way for like, everyday people to connect with the influencers that they see, and again to make it very convenient for them. And I know like you've had a lot of experience in, product development, product management. How would you say, or how would you go about creating like a successful product? Like what does that mean to you, or what are the steps to creating something that is received well, essentially?
Yeah, so there's like a couple of things. The first one is solving a problem for that's a meaningful enough problem for a big enough group of people. Like that's the first thing to success. It's in the industry, it's called like product market fit, right? Where basically you have a product and then there's a group of people, and like your product fits this group of people in a way that is meaningful to them. And I think sometimes what happens is like you have an awesome idea, right? And it does sound like an amazing idea, and you build it out, and then you're like, well, why isn't anybody using it? And then you realize that like, well, there wasn't a big enough problem for them to like need a solution to that problem. Or maybe there's like 3 people in the world that have that problem. And it's maybe really big, but there's just like not that many people who experience it. So it's really important at first to like identify and explore and like really understand like a problem, and then sizing that problem to be like, well, okay, we know there's a problem, but how many people are actually experiencing it? And then how many people are experiencing it to the degree where they will like either pay for it, right? Or in some other way, like you can monetize on this thing. Because the reality is like, if you can't monetize on it, it's probably not a big enough problem. Maybe it sounds too capitalistic.
No, I understand you. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of the first step, you know. So like in product development, and there's like a little bit of a difference between like product development and product management. Product development is usually like from what they call from 0 to 1. So like there was nothing there. And then you build something, you know, and that's really where you figure out like there's a problem area that needs to be fixed. And I'll give you an example, you know, from LTK. The problem was like before, for example, on Instagram, you saw somebody wearing something and you're like, oh my God, I want that. Where did she get that? And so the only way for you to find out is to like DM or direct message that person and be like, hey, where did you get that from? But now imagine she has 10,000 followers and like 1,000 of them are DMing her. Like that's really annoying.
Yeah.
You couldn't add links to this thing, right? Like you couldn't really do anything. And so like people wanted to buy a thing and they didn't know, and they saw this thing, they didn't know what it was called. They didn't know who was like, maybe they knew the retailer, maybe not, and had to do all of this work to like find this product. And so we were like, oh, no problem. We'll tell you where to buy it. But more than that, we won't just tell you where to buy it, but the person who like showed this to you, right, who did all the hard work to find this thing, to like know this thing is good and then tell you where to buy it from, they should probably get a commission, right? They should probably get like a cut of that sale, just the same way you would in a store. In the store, if you go to a sales rep and they basically help you find a thing, they get a commission on that sale, right? So the same way, like the person should get a commission. And so we like helped to solve this problem where people wanted to know where to buy a thing, and people who knew where to buy a thing needed like a way to be able to make money so they can do this full time, you know, not just like part time. And we like found this is a problem. We explored a little bit more. We realized there's a lot of people out there that are having this problem. And then we've built out a solution to that problem. So that was kind of like product development where like nothing exists or something exists, but the way that it exists today is really, really clunky. And you create a solution for that like problem that like, it makes it a little bit easier or a lot easier. And then in product management, I feel like it's more like optimization. So like the thing already is working, but is it working the best it could, right? Is it providing like the best experience? Are there any like points where like users drop off, or they're like, oh, why is this happening? I hate when this happens. Like that's basically you reading data, interviewing people, going through experiences yourself, doing research and figuring out like which parts need to be optimized or maybe like built out further. Or maybe even added to remove those points of like, I hate this.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And I know, earlier you were kind of talking about how you are essentially working with teams, and, you have to kind of figure out like, like what like this, like what these people do, and like what these people who have like this certain expertise does. How do you, or what skills do you think are essential for you to have to kind of get everyone on the same page and to get everyone working well together?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think it's actually kind of soft skills. It's like being able to, again, identify a problem and like not just the symptom of the problem, but like like unpack what is the actual problem at hand, and then communicate that like in like the most easiest way to understand to the people that need to understand this problem, and then help them work through it. And so it's like basically like problem solving and communication are like the two like really key things. And I'll give you an example. In one of my previous companies, we were trying to build out a feature, or we wanted to build out a feature, and for years everybody kept saying we can't do this, like we can't do this, it's too hard, it's like it's too complicated, blah, 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 blah. But nobody could actually tell me why we couldn't do this, like actual specifically. And I spent 3 months basically like trying to understand like, well, what is the actual root cause of this problem? And then I realized that like, like I came to it eventually, and it was an engineering problem. And if there's an engineering problem, there's an engineering solution to that problem. And so it's solvable, like all problems solvable. But I spent, basically 3 months, and 3 months is a very long time, but I spent 3 months unpacking it, understanding it. And then, I got to the point where I'm like, I need to then get everybody else to understand that this is the root problem. And if we solve this specific thing, then, everything else will start falling into place. And so I had a meeting, with my manager, and he was just like, I don't understand. Why did it take like 3 months? And I told him, okay, well, like, and I walked him through it, and he was like, holy moly, like, wow, okay, I get it now. Like, so we should probably spend all of our resources on solving this.
Okay.
And I'm like, exactly. Like, if we solve for this, everything else upstream is going to end up working. We just need to like solve for the specific problem. And so, we're still solving for it. Well, they were still solving for it when I was leaving, but, it's kind of like, there's just like 5 whys exercises, different things that you need to hear. But, like if I didn't spend 3 months understanding the problem, like we wouldn't have been able to ship a very critical feature, to our company, because everyone would be like, oh, someone told me we can't do it. Okay, fine, we can't do it. Like, let's move on. But I was like, no, why can't we do it? And then, well, I'm okay. That's not a big enough reason. Like, well, why can't we do that? And then like, well, I'm okay. Well, why can't we do that?
Yeah.
And so the critical thing is basically like when you hear, no, we can't do this, instead of saying, okay, you say like, no, but why? And it might be that like eventually it's a solvable problem, but it's too expensive to solve. Like it will take too much time, too much effort, and that's fine. Then you'll decide like, okay, we don't want to solve that problem. But it shouldn't be we can't solve it, because we can. Oh, if it's a problem, we can solve it. It's just a matter of time and energy and money you want to spend on solving that problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that like I think that what you're saying is kind of like you're having or it seems as though you kind of have like the skill where you're able to like step back and just kind of look at it from, because like you said, if it's this like one small thing, and again, there are a lot of aspects that you have to kind of consider. Like you're saying, okay, well, is it going to cost too much, or is it going to take too much time? It's like you have to kind of like weigh those things or take those things into account while you're like making certain decisions. But yeah, so I know, again, you have a lot of experience with this. At what point did you really realize that like product development and like management, like those two things were even something that you were interested in to begin with? Because I feel like you have like a lot of experience. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I have some experience building things. So there may be like two, like when I reflect on this, there were like 2 points in my life where I was like, oh, like I think I might like building things, but I didn't quite put them together. So when I was a kid, actually, I didn't like playing with dolls. I mean, I did a little bit like with my girlfriends because I wanted to fit in, but my grandpa got me this like sort of like a Lego type set. And I used to love building spaceships with it. And so I think at some point, like I was just naturally, like my mind naturally was inclined to like building things and trying to like build like super creative things, and not necessarily, like doing something else that like maybe most other girls do. So like, this is kind of a lesson of like, just because other people do it and you like something else doesn't mean that you should do what other people are doing. Like keep exploring your thing. But I never really explored that until, after I graduated. Like my bachelor's degree is in finance and economics. It is not in technology, and it is not in building things. And so I kind of like, maybe I didn't have any role models. Like I didn't really know anybody who was in technology or who was like a woman in technology, right? So like, I didn't, business was kind of like the natural step because I had a lot of role models, in that space. But right before I graduated, I met Jonathan Hill, who is the current dean at Seidenberg. And I met him in like a computer science course that I had to take as an elective at Pace. And he brought me to Seidenberg like office. And I got surrounded by like people who build things. And I was like, whoa, these are my people. I love being around them. Like they're might be building some useless stuff or maybe some interesting stuff, but it's just like really interesting that like they're solving problems all the time or just letting their creativity run wild. And so I started working with Jonathan on different programs. And at that time, I met Julie, who later became my business partner. But we basically were trying to help Jonathan revamp CIS 101. And so for those who are Pace, I think CIS 101 still exists. It's just like intro to computer science for non-majors class. And we were trying to make it more engaging and fun. And in that process, Julie and I realized that just the way the computer science is taught, even before you get to college, is like bad, you know, and even if it gets taught, right? And that we wanted to kind of inspire more people to be technology literate, because our notion was that like in the future, being technology literate would be like being able to read, you know. And so we decided that we want to tackle that problem, that like the problem of just not enough people being interested or being technology literate at the age of like, you know, getting to college in 2000 and like, I don't know, 14, whatever that was, which is like, you know, everybody has an iPhone, like why can't they all also understand how like things work, and you know, and so we decided to like build a company. And that was basically my first exposure to like building products and like unpacking problems in a really important way. Actually, maybe that's a lie. My first exposure was product development project class. So that was maybe my first exposure. And then it was like, you know, the next iteration of that was building that company. And then ever since, I just like kept like building more and more things, you know, and I realized like I had some gaps in my knowledge. So like I was taking computer science courses. I like learned about design thinking, and then slowly but surely got into product. But there was definitely some sort of initial like inclining to when I was a kid, and then just by chance meeting Jonathan and him like taking me to Seidenberg, and I was like, oh, this is home. These are my people.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that you were able to kind of, I don't think it was intentional, obviously, but like marry those two like degrees essentially, because like what you're doing is still, obviously it's still business. You still have to have that business mindset, but you also have to kind of have like the tech knowledge, the tech background. And I know that we had like a previous guest who like she was a CS major, and she also loved ballet, and like she combined the two and made her own like company. So whenever I hear about things like this, I just get really excited, because it gives me a lot of hope that within the like CS field you can basically kind of do whatever you want. And I feel like you're obviously like the perfect example of that. But yeah, I just want to thank you again for sharing all of that with us. I know that there are a lot of students who are obviously going to value what you've shared with us today. So again, thank you for being here.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me. And then maybe like if I can do a PSA, you know, I'm happy to like mentor and maybe even like guide some students. I know there's a couple of them that reached out to me on LinkedIn who were in computer science, who were like, I love technology. I have this background. I don't think I want to be a developer, but I want to still work in the space. Maybe product is the thing for me. And, you know, I've helped a couple of them through like interview process, recruiting process, and just guidance and coaching, like what they might need to learn. And so like, find me on LinkedIn, ping me, send me a note, and then I'm happy to connect with people and give them some advice.
Yes, we're gonna be linking Olga's LinkedIn down below so that you guys can reach out to her in case you have any questions, any inquiries, anything of the sort. But again, thank you. It was really amazing talking to you. I really value everything that you've shared today, and I can't wait for this episode to be out.
Thanks, Brittany. Thanks, Seidenberg, for having me.